My mom has always been against my wife, and what she did last night forced me to make this life-altering decision. So this might sound like a typical mom versus wife situation, but trust me, this is a whole different level. I need to share this because it feels like the weight of the world is crushing me, and I don't know if I made the right choice. The truth is, I never thought I'd be in a position like this. It all started a few years ago when I introduced my wife Sarah to my mom. At first, everything seemed fine. Sarah was a little nervous, but that's expected. I mean, who wouldn't be when meeting the person who raised the man you're marrying? But my mom? She acted like she was all on board, like she was excited to see me with someone. She even smiled and made nice small talk, but something felt off. It wasn't until later that I started noticing small comments, little things that at first I brushed off as harmless. You know, honey, a real woman knows how to keep a clean house, she said once when Sarah wasn't around. It was a dig, but it was subtle enough that I thought maybe I was overthinking it. Then came the advice on our relationship. The unsolicited comments about how I should be the one making all the decisions, how Sarah should be more submissive, and how she wasn't as respectful as my mom expected. Sarah was always polite, always kind, but my mom started to criticize her more and more. It didn't get better after we got married. In fact, it only got worse. Every time Sarah and I would visit my mom, I could feel the tension in the air. Sarah would try to be nice, offer help in the kitchen, ask if she could bring anything, but nothing was ever good enough. My mom would find something to nitpick. Sarah's hair was too messy, her dress wasn't classy enough, her voice was too soft, and heaven forbid she didn't agree with every single thing my mom said. And I kept telling myself, it's fine, it'll get better, it's just my mom being herself. But deep down, I knew it was starting to take a toll on Sarah. I could see it in the way she'd hesitate before calling or visiting, the way she'd get quiet during our family dinners. It felt like she was walking on eggshells around my mom, and no matter how much I tried to reassure her, the damage was done. But it all came to a head last night, a night that completely shattered everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. It was a quiet evening, just like any other. Sarah and I had dinner at my mom's place, and things had been going as smoothly as they could, considering the underlying tension. I tried to keep the conversation light, but there was this ever-present tension that I couldn't ignore. My mom was in one of her moods, giving Sarah a side-eye every chance she got, making passive-aggressive comments. At one point, she even made a remark about how it's nice that Sarah doesn't mind doing things the old-fashioned way. It was a comment loaded with judgment, and I could tell it struck Sarah. Sarah smiled politely, but I saw her eyes flicker with frustration. She excused herself to go to the bathroom, and I followed her with my eyes, hoping she would be okay. I turned back to my mom and tried to defuse the situation, but my mom wasn't having it. You know, you really should have a talk with Sarah, she said, her voice lowered but with a cold edge. She's been distant lately. I don't think she's a good influence on you. You've changed since she came into the picture. I froze. I wasn't sure if my mom was serious or just trying to get under my skin, but I couldn't stay silent this time. What do you mean she's a bad influence on me? I asked, my voice rising with tension. Sarah's the best thing that's ever happened to me. You should be grateful she's in my life. Grateful? My mom scoffed. She's ruining you. She's too modern, too independent. You need someone who understands what family values are, someone who knows how to be a proper wife. That was it. Something snapped inside me. I tried to stay calm, but my emotions were boiling over. I couldn't take her tearing down my wife, the woman I loved, every chance she got. Just then, Sarah came back into the room, and my mom's eyes immediately shifted to her. The look she gave her was enough to send a chill down my spine. But Sarah didn't flinch. She didn't look down. Instead, she calmly walked over to the table and sat down, her face expressionless. I think it's time we leave, Sarah said, her voice surprisingly firm. I knew that tone. She was done. My heart skipped a beat as Sarah stood up, but my mom wasn't having it. Oh, so now you're going to leave because I said something you didn't like, she snapped. This is how you repay me after everything I've done for you? Mom, stop, I said, my voice tight. You've been insulting my wife for months. I'm done with this. It felt like a bomb went off. Sarah grabbed my hand and we turned to leave, but as we reached the door, my mom's voice rang out, stopping us in our tracks. Fine, go. You're both making a huge mistake, she yelled. But you'll regret it. You'll regret choosing her over me. We left in silence. The car ride home was tense. Sarah didn't speak. I didn't speak. But my mind was racing. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved, the woman who had been nothing but kind, been made to feel so unwanted? And how had my own mother pushed me to a point where I was choosing between her and Sarah? The truth was I wasn't sure anymore. But what happened next, what my mom did last night, forced me to make a decision that would change everything. The night was eerily quiet as Sarah and I sat in our living room, the weight of my mom's words still heavy in the air. We hadn't spoken much since we left her house. I could feel Sarah's anger simmering beneath the surface, but she was holding it together, just barely. I knew Sarah was hurt, but she wasn't saying much. She never liked conflict, and my mom had made sure there was no shortage of it. I could see it in her eyes, the exhaustion, the frustration. My mother's relentless criticism had been wearing her down for so long, and I had done nothing to stop it. I felt a pang of guilt. I should have done something earlier. I should have protected her better. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity before I finally spoke. Sarah, I'm so sorry, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I never should have let it go this far. I should have stood up to her long ago. You didn't deserve any of this. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and something else, something I couldn't quite place. Her lips pressed together as if she were holding back words she didn't know how to say. I've had enough of this, honestly, she said, her voice steady but tinged with frustration. It's not just tonight. It's every time we visit her, every comment, every judgment, every little thing she says. I'm done. I sat back in the chair, feeling the weight of her words. I know it's been hard on you, but I didn't realize how much it was affecting you until now. You never realized? She asked, a hint of disbelief in her voice. I've been trying to tell you for months, but you always brush it off like it's nothing. Her words stung, and for the first time in a long while I saw the cracks in our relationship. I had been too blind, too focused on trying to please everyone else. I'd allowed my mother's behavior to slowly erode the connection Sarah and I had built. I should have listened, I muttered, barely able to meet her gaze. I'm sorry. Sarah shook her head, her eyes filled with hurt. It's not just about listening, it's about action. You kept letting her treat me like I didn't matter, like I was just some guest in your life, not someone you chose to spend your future with. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I never meant for things to be like this, but I couldn't. I couldn't deny the truth in what she was saying. I love you, Sarah, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. I'm not choosing her over you. I want you to know that. She looked away, her lips trembling as she tried to hold back tears. I need you to show me that, she whispered. And that was the moment I knew. I knew I had to make a decision that would change everything. The next day, I tried to clear my head. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened at my mom's house, about the choice that now lay in front of me. I loved my mother, but I also loved Sarah. And the way things had been going, it felt like I was going to lose one of them no matter what I did. I called my mom. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I knew I had to say something. I couldn't let this fester any longer. Hey, Mom, I said when she picked up the phone. We need to talk. There was a brief pause on the other end, and I could hear her sigh. I know what this is about, she said. You're going to tell me I was too hard on Sarah again, aren't you? I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my cool. Mom, it's not just about being hard on her. It's about respect. It's about treating her like she's a part of this family, not someone you can just criticize and tear down every time we see you. She huffed, the same defensive tone creeping into her voice. I'm just trying to help you. You need to open your eyes, son. She's not the right woman for you. I gritted my teeth. That's where you're wrong, Mom. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm not going to sit here and let you destroy our relationship. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and I could hear her breathing heavily. Finally, she spoke. Are you saying you're choosing her over me? She asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I am. I'm choosing Sarah. I love her, and I'm done letting you tear us apart. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like the world had just shifted beneath my feet. I had chosen Sarah. I had finally made the choice that I had been avoiding for so long. I walked back into the living room where Sarah was sitting, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I talked to my mom, I said, my voice steady, and I told her that I'm choosing you, that I'm done with the way she's treated you. I'm done with the way she's treated us. Sarah's face softened, and for the first time in days, she smiled. You really mean it? I do, I said, nodding. I love you, Sarah, and I'm not going to let anyone tear us apart. Her smile grew wider, and she stood up to hug me. It felt like a weight had been lifted from both of us. But even as I held her, I knew that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a much harder journey. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. You've made your choice, and I hope you can live with the consequences. I stared at the message, feeling a mixture of guilt and relief. I had made my choice, and now there was no going back. The message from my mom hung in the air like a heavy weight, a silent reminder of the storm that was still brewing. My phone lay face up on the coffee table, the screen illuminating the dark room with the words, You've made your choice, and I hope you can live with the consequences. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, the sharp sting of guilt threatening to suffocate me. But beneath the guilt, there was also a sense of relief. I had made a choice I had been avoiding for far too long. I chose Sarah. When I looked over at her, she was sitting on the couch, eyes fixed on me with a look I couldn't quite decipher. Hope? Fear? Maybe both. You okay? She asked, her voice soft. I nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. Yeah, I think so. I told her that I'm choosing you, that I'm done letting her control things. Sarah's lips curled into a small, tentative smile. And what did she say? I shrugged, picking up the phone and showing her the message from my mom. She didn't take it well, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I'm done feeling guilty for loving you. Her eyes softened and she reached out to hold my hand. I just need you to keep your word, to show me that I'm your priority. I felt like I was constantly competing with her for your attention, and it's been exhausting. I promise, I said, squeezing her hand. I'll never let her get between us again. But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. The damage had been done, and choosing Sarah meant not only distancing myself from my mom, but also facing a new kind of struggle. One that would challenge everything I had known about loyalty, family, and love. The next few days were filled with tension. I tried to keep my mind occupied with work and distractions, but my thoughts kept drifting back to my mom's reaction. The message still echoed in my mind, the consequences she referred to. What did that mean? What would she do now? I didn't have to wait long to find out. It was a Friday evening when my phone rang and the caller ID read Mom. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. Hello? I said, my voice steady but laced with apprehension. I hope you're happy. My mom's voice came through, cold and sharp. You've made your decision and now I'll make mine. I frowned. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you and your precious wife. She spat the words as though they were venom. I'm not going to sit back and watch you throw everything away for someone who doesn't care about our family. I bit my lip, trying to remain calm. You don't get it, Mom. This isn't about throwing everything away. This is about respect. I'm not going to let you tear us apart anymore. She was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was laced with something I couldn't quite identify. Regret? Anger? Maybe both. I've always been there for you, and this is how you repay me. I'm your mother, and I deserve better than this. I've always loved you, Mom, I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. But I'm not a kid anymore. I have a family of my own now, and I need you to respect that. There was a long pause on the other end, and when she spoke again, her voice was lower, almost trembling. Fine, do what you want, but don't come crawling back when it all falls apart. Don't expect me to be there to pick up the pieces. Before I could respond, she hung up. And that was it. The final break. The following week was a whirlwind. My mom refused to return my calls, and I knew that she was hurt, angry, and likely telling anyone who would listen that I had abandoned her for Sarah. But I didn't care. I couldn't. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself, for the woman I loved, and for the life we had built together. The tension at home, though, was palpable. Sarah and I were both on edge. We had this uneasy peace between us, but it felt fragile, like it could shatter at any moment. One evening, a few days after the call with my mom, I was sitting on the couch when Sarah came up to me, holding something in her hands. "What's this?" I asked, noticing it was a letter. "It's from your mom," she said, her voice quiet. I felt a lump form in my throat. My mom had finally decided to reach out. I opened the envelope, feeling my heart race as I unfolded the letter. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and about everything that's happened. I may not agree with your choice, but I've come to realize something. I've been selfish, and I've been hurtful. Maybe I've said things I didn't mean. I've always wanted what's best for you, even if my way of showing it wasn't the right way. I don't know if I'll ever accept Sarah the way you want me to, but I want you to know that I'm still your mother, and no matter what, I love you. I'm not asking you to choose between us. I just want you to know that I'm here if you need me. I'm sorry for the things I said, and I hope one day you can forgive me. Love, Mom." I stared at the letter in disbelief, my hands shaking. My mom had finally apologized. She was acknowledging her mistakes, but I didn't know how to feel about it. Sarah, who had been sitting silently beside me, placed a hand on mine. "Do you want to respond?" I hesitated, unsure of what to do. "I don't know. I want to, but it's complicated." "You've got time," she said softly. "Just take it one step at a time." And that's where I stand now. I'm still processing everything. My relationship with my mom will never be the same. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her fully, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not going to let anyone dictate my life or my relationship with Sarah. We've come so far, and we've made it through some of the toughest moments in our marriage. We're still standing strong, and that's all that matters. Time passed, and I realized I had made my choice, my wife. We were building a future together despite the pain and toxic atmosphere my mom had created. But there was this one moment that made me feel like my life was about to take an unpredictable turn. My mom had finally sent me a letter. It was something I knew was coming, but it still shocked me.